You built everything from nothing, Mr. Calloway. The cell side of Chicago, just like my mother, Ray. I think you should know that the stool gnat's still where. I don't know if you can hear me, Richard.
Every word. You never left that.
I told you I wouldn't. Mr. Calloway, you hear me? Say something, please.
I heard every word. Every single day.
A young nurse bathed a millionaire in a coma. But when he suddenly woke up, something miraculous happened. Nobody wanted room 14. The other nurses at Mercy General Hospital in Chicago called it the silent room. Not because it was quiet, but because the man inside it had not spoken a single word in 7 months. He had no visitors, no flowers on the windowsill, no handwritten cards taped to the wall. Just machines that breathed for him and monitors that tracked a heartbeat that stubbornly refused to quit. His name was Richard Calloway, 61 years old. Founder of Calloway Capital, a private equity firm that had swallowed up 3 mid-sized companies in the past decade alone, worth somewhere north of $400 million, depending on which financial magazine you believed. He had been found unconscious on the marble floor of his penthouse by a housekeeper on a Tuesday morning in late October. A massive hemorrhagic stroke that his doctors described, quietly and privately, as unsurvivable by most standards. Richard Calloway was not most people. He had survived. But surviving and living, his neurologist Dr. Anand had explained, were two very different things. The man's body persisted. His mind, as far as anyone could tell, had gone somewhere none of them could follow. His only living relative, a nephew named Carter, had called the hospital twice in 7 months. Both calls were about power of attorney. Nobody talks about what it costs to care for a person the world has already written off. Not the financial cost, the human cost. The cost of walking into a room every single day, doing everything right and receiving nothing in return. No thank you, no smile, no recognition. Just the sound of machines and the weight of a silence that never lifted. Most of the nurses at Mercy General rotated out of room 14 quickly. They were not unkind people. They were tired people, working in a system that asked too much and gave back too little, and there were only so many hours in a shift. When you had 15 patients and one of them could not acknowledge your presence in any way, the quiet math of survival made you spend your time where it felt like it mattered. Elena Vasquez had never been good at that kind of math. She arrived at Mercy General on a gray November morning with a second-hand nursing badge, a pair of clearance sneakers, and a quiet determination that the more senior nurses mistook at first for timidity. She was 26 years old. The daughter of a home care nurse from Pilsen on the south side of Chicago, a woman who had worked double shifts her entire life so that Elena could finish her nursing degree. Elena had graduated near the top of her class. She had also graduated with $41,000 in student loans, a mother whose arthritis had gotten bad enough to force early retirement, and a younger brother named Marco whose seizure disorder required medication that cost far more than it should in a country that called itself civilized. She did not complain about any of this. She simply worked. When the charge nurse, a brisk woman named Patricia, asked Elena on her first day if she would be willing to take on the long-term care patients on the 4th floor, the ones other nurses quietly passed off when they could, Elena said yes without hesitating. Room 14 is the most time-intensive, Patricia warned her, clipboard pressed to her chest. The patient has been unresponsive since admission. Full bathing, passive range of motion exercises, turning schedule, oral care. Family has signed a full care directive, which means we maintain everything. She paused. Most of the staff rotate out of that room pretty quickly. It can feel pointless. Elena looked at the closed door of room 14. It's not pointless, she said. He's still a person. Patricia studied her for a moment. Then she made a small note on her clipboard and walked away without saying another word. The first time Elena walked into room 14, she stopped just inside the doorway and took it all in. The hiss and click of the ventilator, the green waveforms moving across the cardiac monitor, the pale winter light pressing through the half-closed blinds. Richard Calloway lay motionless in the hospital bed, his silver hair neatly combed, his hands resting on top of the white sheet like two objects that had been placed there deliberately. He looked, she thought, like a man who had simply decided to step out of his own life for a while. She set her supply cart beside the bed, pulled on her gloves, and began. "Good morning, Mr. Calloway," she said. "My name is Elena. I'll be taking care of you." She said this not because she expected an answer. She said it because her mother had taught her, in the way only a woman who has spent 20 years caring for people who cannot speak for themselves can teach, that talking to someone who cannot respond is not for them. It is a declaration of their humanity, a refusal to let them disappear. She worked carefully and gently, talking as she went. She told him about the weather outside. She mentioned that the cafeteria was apparently getting new coffee machines, which the staff seemed disproportionately excited about. She read aloud from a sports section someone had left in the break room, describing a Bears game with the cheerful detachment of someone who knew nothing about football but was doing her best. She came back the next day, and the day after that, and every day after that. Weeks passed. The Chicago winter settled in fully, pressing gray and heavy against every window of Mercy General. Other nurses asked Elena how she stood it. Room 14, the silence, the routine of caring for a man who gave nothing back. She always gave the same answer. "He gives back," she would say. "He just does it differently." To notice small things about Richard Calloway that the charts did not record. The faint furrow between his brows when the room got too cold. The almost imperceptible relaxation of his jaw when she played soft classical music from her phone. A habit she had started after reading a study on auditory stimulation in coma patients on her own time, at home, after her shifts were done. The way his blood pressure, almost without fail, dropped 2 or 3 points during the hours she was in the room compared to any other time of day. She mentioned these observations to Dr. Anand, who listened carefully and ordered a new round of neurological assessments. The results came back inconclusive, but he did not dismiss her. "Coma is poorly understood," he told her, in the measured tone of a man who had learned to hold certainty loosely. "We know very little about what persists inside. Keep doing what you're doing." She did. She brought in a small succulent plant and set it on the windowsill. She found an old profile of Richard Calloway online and read it carefully. She learned that he had grown up poor on the south side of Chicago. Not far, she realized with a quiet start, from where her own mother had grown up. She read him pieces of that article. She told him she found it interesting, what a person could build from nothing, and that she hoped he knew it still mattered. She did not do any of this because she expected a miracle. She did it because it was right. The morning it happened was unremarkable in every way. February 3rd. A Tuesday. Elena arrived at her usual time, signed in, picked up her cart, and walked down the 4th-floor hallway past the soft sounds of the ward waking up. She pushed open the door to room 14 and began her morning greeting before she had even fully stepped inside. "Good morning, Mr. Calloway. It's Tuesday. The worst day of the week as far as I'm concerned, though I'm open to arguments. The coffee machine is still broken, which means the 2nd floor is threatening a full mutiny, and I heard someone actually brought in a French press from home, which is..." She stopped. His eyes were open. Not the unfocused, glassy half-open that sometimes happened involuntarily with long-term coma patients. Open, and looking at her, directly at her with a focus that was quiet and still and unmistakably, undeniably present. Elena did not scream. She did not drop anything. She did not move for 1 full second, just long enough to make sure she was seeing what she was seeing. Then she walked to the side of the bed and leaned forward slightly.
"Mr. Calloway," she said, her voice perfectly level. "Can you hear me?"
His lips moved. The ventilator made the sound difficult to read, but slowly, carefully, with an effort that she could see in every muscle of his face, he formed 2 words. "I heard." Elena pressed the call button on the bed rail. She kept her eyes on his face. She kept her voice calm and steady. "I know," she said softly. "I know you did." The next 72 hours were a controlled storm of neurologists, speech therapists, ethicists, and hospital administrators. Richard Calloway's recovery defied every projection his medical team had put on paper. He was weaned off the ventilator by the end of day 2. By day 3, he was speaking in short, effortful sentences that grew longer and steadier with every passing hour. Dr. Anand described the case to the staff as one of the most significant spontaneous recoveries he had witnessed in 22 years of practice. Carter Calloway, the nephew, arrived on day 2 in a sport coat that cost more than Elena's monthly rent. He stood at the foot of his uncle's bed with an expression that mixed relief and calculation in proportions that were hard to read. Richard watched him from the pillow with eyes that had gone flat and careful. Elena stayed out of the way during those first busy days. She continued her regular duties, let the specialists do their work, and told herself that her role had simply been what it always was, doing her job with care. Nothing more. On the 4th day, when the room had finally quieted and the parade of specialists had slowed to a trickle, she came in for her afternoon round. Richard Calloway was sitting up in bed for the first time, helped there by the physical therapist that morning. He was looking at the window, at the small succulent plant on the sill, when she walked in. "You brought that," he said. His voice was still rough, like gravel settling, but the sentence was clear and sure. "I did," Elena said. "It's hard to kill. I thought that was appropriate." Something shifted in his expression. Not quite a smile. Not yet. But the place where a smile lives before it arrives. "You talk to me," he said, "every day." "Yes, I heard you." A pause. All of it. Elena was quiet for a moment. She looked at him steadily. "I know," she said. He held her gaze, the way people rarely look at nurses, the way people rarely look at anyone who quietly serves them, and asked simply, "Why?" She thought about it honestly before she answered. "Because you were still in there," she said, "and I didn't think you should have to be alone." Richard Calloway was discharged from Mercy General 41 days after waking up. He left in a wheelchair, standard protocol, pushed by a transport aide, with Elena walking beside him to the elevator. He had requested her specifically for the discharge walkout, which caused Patricia, the charge nurse, to raise both eyebrows and say absolutely nothing. At the elevator, he reached out and took Elena's hand. His grip was still not strong, but it was certain. "I'd like to do something," he said. "For you, for your family. I know about your mother. I know about your brother's medication." He paused, reading her expression. "I know that sounds alarming. I'm not trying to buy anything. I understand the difference." He searched for the right words, the way a man who spent months unable to speak sometimes still must. "I've had a lot of time to think about what I did with my life before, what I didn't do, and I would like to do things differently now." Elena looked at him for a long moment. "You don't owe me anything," she said. "No," he agreed. "But I want to." He held her gaze. "There's a difference." In the months that followed, Richard Calloway did not make a dramatic public gesture. He did not call a press conference. He did not post anything on social media. What he did was quiet and specific and thorough. He paid off Elena's student loans in full. He established a monthly stipend for her mother's medical expenses that would not expire. He arranged, through a pharmaceutical assistance program his foundation subsequently funded, for Marco's seizure medication to be covered indefinitely, along with the medication of 18 other families in the same situation that Elena had not even known he was looking into. He called Dr. Anand and made a 7-figure donation to Mercy General's neurology department, designated specifically for coma patient care research and the training of nursing staff in long-term patient communication. The program was named, at his insistence over the hospital administration's preference for his own name on the sign, the Elena 5th Patient Dignity Initiative. Elena found out about the name on a Tuesday morning, reading an internal hospital memo over coffee in the break room. She sat with it for a long moment. Then she set down her cup, straightened her badge, and went to start her rounds. Room 14 had a new patient now. A 43-year-old woman named Diane who had been unconscious since a car accident 2 weeks prior. No visitors yet. The family was still in that terrible first stage of shock where you drive to the hospital and drive home and drive back again because you don't know what else to do. Elena walked into the room, set her cart beside the bed, and pulled on her gloves. "Good morning, Diane," she said. My name is Elena. I'll be taking care of you. The monitors beeped their steady rhythm. The winter light pressed through the blinds. The room was quiet and full of the hiss of machinery and the weight of everything unsaid. Elena began to talk. She talked because that was the whole point. Because presence was the most powerful thing one human being could give another. Because silence, in a place like this, was a choice, and she had long ago decided it was not hers to make. Because sometimes the most miraculous thing in the world is simply refusing to let someone disappear. The end.